We begin our story in ancient Israel. A call echoes through the valleys and hills, a call for a king. The people, yearning for a leader like the nations around them, present their demands to the prophet, and God decides to give them a king just as they have requested. Meet Saul, handsome, bewildered by destiny, and the chosen one. But how does a man lost in the wilderness with donkeys become the first king of Israel? It begins with Samuel, the revered prophet, chosen by God to anoint Israel's monarch. God directs Samuel with clarity, yet the prophet feels the tension between divine sovereignty and human desires. Can Israel's choice bring glory or peril? Saul stands reluctant, chosen by divine decree, yet apprehensive about the weight of a crown. His journey begins, a tale of conflicts, leadership, and choices. This moment marks the dawn of new leadership, a chapter where the desires of people meet divine plans. Join us as we explore the saga of Saul, embraced by the people yet burdened by the crown. A story of humility, leadership, and divine struggles. Let's dive deep into Saul's story. Picture young Saul, newly anointed as the king, leading a nation fraught with anxiety against the formidable Ammonites. Their cries for mercy weren't met with despair, but with mighty resolve. Saul rallied his people with a charisma that turned fear into courage. As the clamor of battle subsided, Israel emerged victorious, and Saul was hailed as a hero. The nation was abuzz with pride, captivated by this new leader who promised them deliverance and hope. But here's where the story twists. While victory can cloak a multitude of faults, it also sets the stage for the unraveling. Buoyed by his triumph, Saul starts to believe in his invincibility. But power, as it often does, can go to one's head. When urgency strikes, Saul steps into a sacred duty meant for the prophet Samuel, offering sacrifices meant to bind the divine favor. What seemed like a harmless act of devotion was, in God's eyes, a breach of obedience. A dangerous precedent was set. This story isn't just a recount of historic battles, but a poignant reminder of early successes' seductive nature. Saul had tasted victory, but at what cost? With his heart slowly swayed by pride, he faced the ultimate test: obedience to divine law. God gives a command to Saul through the prophet Samuel, the command to annihilate the Amalekites entirely. Every person, every animal, a total wipeout as an act of divine justice. One might ask, why such a command? Historically, the Amalekites were a fierce enemy of the Israelites, perpetually threatening their peace and survival. This wasn't just a military order, it was a divine mandate aiming to protect and purify. Saul mobilizes his forces and prepares to carry out the mission. But here's where the story takes a twist. Saul decides to spare King Agag and the finest of the livestock. Sound familiar? It's like a modern leader facing a choice: obey completely or make exceptions for seemingly good reasons. With victory seemingly at hand, Saul returns pleased. However, God speaks to Samuel, revealing Saul's disobedience. Samuel's confrontation with Saul is intense and direct. Realizing what's at stake, Samuel declares the tragic truth: God has rejected Saul as king. It's a pivotal moment that hinges on the theme. Partial obedience is disobedience. What does this all mean? Why did God place such importance on obedience over sacrifice? Because God isn't looking for empty actions, but genuine devotion. Obedience from the heart matters most. Our story continues with David's spectacular triumph over Goliath, this monumental victory earning him a place near King Saul. As songs of praise for David echo through the kingdom, our hero's valiant deeds captivate the hearts of the people. Yet the echoes of admiration that lift David up are the very ones that plant seeds of jealousy within the heart of Saul. Once admired as their fearless leader, Saul feels his grip on power slowly slipping away, overshadowed by David's rising star. The kingdom watches as this simmering envy stirs a tempest within Saul, transforming mere suspicion into a driving obsession. Saul's mind becomes a battleground of insecurity, each day seeing him fall deeper into the shadows, further from the light of reason. We see themes of jealousy as the catalyst for Saul's spiritual decline. Through gripping events, it explores how unchecked envy not only poisons the soul, but can unravel the fabric of leadership. Join us as we witness the unfolding drama of power struggles, spiritual challenges, and the human condition that reflects in these timeless stories. This is the shadow of David, where history and morality tales intertwine, posing the poignant question, how far from grace can one fall when fear eclipses faith? Haunted by David's rising favor and the tormented absence of God's Spirit, Saul's fear spirals into a destructive path. His growing paranoia, Saul perceives David as a threat, overshadowed by the young shepherd's increasing popularity. In a chilling twist, Saul's fear morphs into aggression, triggering multiple attempts to end David's life. Imagine the court, once filled with music and laughter, now echoing with suspicion and hostility. Saul's journey into darkness deepens when he turns his wrath toward the innocent. The priests of Nob, accused of aiding David, face Saul's furious judgment. It's a moment of pure horror, as their sacred lineage and sanctuary is desecrated by an act of merciless slaughter. Amidst this chaos, Saul's son, Jonathan, finds himself torn between loyalty to his father and his deep bond with David. Their friendship, a beacon of light amid impending doom, begins to fracture under Saul's oppressive shadow. This episode encapsulates a stark theme. The fear of losing control breeds isolation and alienation. Saul's descent into darkness isolates him from his closest allies, leaving behind a trail of destruction. King Saul, burdened by the weight of a falling kingdom, seeks counsel from a forbidden source, the Witch of Endor. In the shadows, under the watchful eyes of an ancient seer, Saul learns of his impending doom. Saul, I must know what fate awaits me. The witch, tomorrow you fight your last, your kingdom shall fall, as will you. The prophecy hangs heavy as Saul leads his men into a battle against the Philistines at Mount Gilboa. Saul, have I led the path astray? Shall this truly be my end? The king, isolated amidst battle, reflects on the choices that led him. In a moment of solitude amidst the clamor of war, every disobedience and defiance echoes louder than victory ever could. The foretold fall of a king unfolds as Saul breathes his last on the blood-stained earth. Thus ends the tragic tale of a leader who abandoned the wisdom of heavens, now lying silent and alone. Leadership unaligned with divine guidance thunders through history like a warning, etched in the fall of Saul. Let this story echo, a testament against disobedience and the isolation of forsaking divine counsel in your life. Let us reflect on Saul's journey as king. His kingship begins with a divine selection. God chooses Saul, anointing him through the prophet Samuel. Standing head and shoulders above the rest, his reign starts with vigor and hope. Saul leads battles, uniting the tribes of Israel against their enemies, establishing a measure of peace and stability. Yet, as the saying goes, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Saul's reign is marred by fear and impatience. As pressure mounts, Saul begins to stray from God's guidance. A notable moment occurs when Saul, instead of waiting for Samuel, offers a burnt sacrifice himself. A significant disobedience spurred by fear of losing the people's support. Further cracks in his leadership become evident with his obsession over David, the young shepherd boy who rises in favor after defeating Goliath. Saul's jealousy blinds him, diverting his path from a ruler to a man desperate to cling to his throne. Here's the takeaway. Sometimes, in our own lives, we might think we can cut corners with half measures, especially when they seem reasonable or beneficial. But this story of Saul teaches, when it comes to obedience, God values a wholehearted commitment. The heart is the ultimate measure. We hope this series has inspired you. Don't forget to follow, like, comment, and share for more stories of faith and resilience. Until next time, God bless you.